I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of CliftonStrengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Coach, Season 2 of the Strengths Whisperer. I am here today with Joe Self, strategic partner for independent coaches, author, Practical Strengths Series, founder, Discover Joe Self. She's a strengths advocate and communication strategist. Comes to us today all the way from Mexico City. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Joe, you got to tell us about all the things. Practical Strengths Series, strategic partner, the founder of your company, the advocate, the strategist. Please tell us all some of the things you're doing.
And we're here to talk about ideation, right? So this all rolls together, all the things.
Oh, yes. Let's not bury the lead. Tell them right now. Here's how ideation works.
Here's how ideation works. No, I started my strengths journey back in 2003. I got certified in 2015 here in Mexico City. I was part of the very first Spanish-speaking cohort. And my passion was always around entrepreneurs. I come from an entrepreneurial background. I've been on my own working outside the corporate system since 2007. So I've got 17 years freelancing, entrepreneur, consulting, et cetera, et cetera. And I just had a real passion for them. And I wanted to build a space that was, because I'd always wanted a me for me. That's my biggest why I do what I do, is I wanted a me for me. And so I find that when you're out there, so much is geared the wrong way. It's geared towards corporations so much, or larger companies, or people who are already established, that when you're first getting started, it can be really challenging. And so very organically, my client base ended up becoming other strengths coaches, which was not at all what I set out to do. In fact, when I said, I'm like, who the heck am I to teach other strengths, like teach other coaches about strengths or do anything with it? But at the end of the day, that's where I showed up. And that's where I really fit. And so everything really built off of there. And over the course, that has evolved to just recognizing how much of a need is out there to really create a bigger impact with this tool that I think I always say you don't need to get a master's degree in strengths, but you got to be able to use them in a sentence. And if you can't use all 34 words in a sentence, then what's the point? So I really love the idea of teaching this as another language. And here talk about ideation, but ideation and strategic. I mean, that's why people hire me. It's how I show up in the world.
That's right. I love that we're diving right into ideation, because this strength has depth, it has dimension, it has features to it that sometimes I think, because the term ideation seems to give an idea of, well, this is what it means. This is how it plays. And yet there's a lot to this strength. And I think it connects very well to what you just said. This is a language, and a language has nuance, and a language has innuendo, and a language has shape and form. And someone with your talents, when you see the language, given that you are a multiple language speaker, you do live, somewhere other than where you were raised, outside of your country, and here you are, a citizen of the world, right, Joe? And that ability to be where you are. Let's dive in. This show is all about diving into strengths, and I do want to mention this in case, listener, if you're a coach here today and you are looking for guidance around the language of strengths, if you're looking for guidance around communicating with it, this is what Joe does. And so I think this show is going to be helpful for a lot of you listening today that might be needing some added depth, understanding, meaning not only to your practice, whether you are inside of an organization being tasked with engaging and sustaining a strengths-based initiative to become a strengths-based organization, or you're an external practitioner and your goal is to help individuals or teams or organizations, public sector, private sector, nonprofit, to do such things. This is where Joe excels. So Joe, talk to us about ideation. Tell us about this strength.
Well, thank you for that. And so I think you're so right. There's so many nuances. And I think the word itself automatically puts us into, oh, it's all about brainstorming. Oh, no. No, 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 no. It is so much more than brainstorming. Brainstorming is definitely a part of it because those of us with ideation, there are no bad ideas. And when I say that, that doesn't mean there's not a bad idea. There are bad ideas. But for us, you can't get to a great idea if you don't hear the bad ideas too, because the bad idea can spark a great idea or be the base of something more beautiful that comes out of it. And that's really the essence of ideation, is that ability to pull something that seems completely unrelated or disconnected into something whole and an entirely different idea in and of its own. And so I often use, the beauty of ideation is, if you remember those connect the dot drawings we had as kids, right? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and like you go through 32 dots, and those 32 dots make a bunny rabbit. You're like, oh, look, it's a bunny rabbit. Ideation doesn't need the numbers. It sees the dots and goes, oh, look, it's a bunny rabbit. Now, the downside of that is that ideation actually barely even sees the dots. It just sees the bunny rabbit. So while everyone else is overwhelmed by the 32 dots on the piece of paper, ideation is like, I really don't understand the problem. It's just a bunny rabbit. Right. And so that can be the downside, because what overwhelms a lot of other people, and people's like, oh my God, Joe, you're doing so many things. I don't know how not to do so many things. That is my space of peace. That is where I get my energy and motivation. And so my challenge is not overwhelming other people when I think it's all just a bunny rabbit. And the rabbit needs a tail and ears and a nose and whiskers. Like, all those pieces matter.
That's good. The term in the technical definition, seeing connections in disparate phenomena and being able to connect and articulate what that connection is. And I find with ideation, that strength really shows its worth and power when the words can match the concept, when there's an ability to do what you just said, bring others along to see what it is I'm seeing, and then to show you the roadmap for how we get there. And I think you and I might agree that that's, you start to advance in ideation. That becomes the mature version of it, because now we're no longer just, sharing ideas for the sake.
Randomly saying something that someone goes, where in the world did that come from? And you're like, oh, well, let me tell you where that came from, right? Because I will often say this too. And I said, people with ideation will often hear from others, what does that have to do with anything? Right. And you're like, what is it not? Oh my God, really? Okay, well, because of this and this and this and this. And so I'm always like, it's like a train that goes in this year. You're talking to me about your dog. And then I say, I love vanilla ice cream too. And you're like, what does vanilla ice cream have to do with my dog? And you're like, oh, trust me, they're connected. Give me a second. But the mature version is being able to go, stick with me for a second. This is going to sound like it's coming out of nowhere, but I promise there's a connection. Stick with me.
Yeah, there it is. And I love that you made that. Yeah, that disclaimer, right? That disclaimer that you're going to feel for a second like I've left the path into an area you can't follow me, but don't worry, I'm going to leave breadcrumbs. You will find your way here, because words like inventive, creative, artistic, the ability to see space where none exists, the ability to form into concept things that are only ethereal, and then from moving from concept to application, actualization, and then outcome. Now this is producing a result, and I think that's the full cycle of an ideate, right? I can see it at its inception, and then I can help us get it all the way to actualization. I'm wondering if you can talk from experience, being an ideation type, when you get to do that and see that full cycle work through.
I mean, I think, if anybody has worked with me as a coach, they have probably heard me say at some point, all right, give me a moment, but if you give me a seed, I'll plant you a forest, and I can't help myself. So give me a second. So when it shows up with other people, it really is one of the reasons most people hire me, is the ideation part, because I can see things that they don't see. They see possibility. And so I may even say to them, like, this might sound crazy or out of left field, but let me walk you through this and tell me how that feels for you. And there's often this like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. I'm like, great, but how does that feel? And I'm like, that feels amazing. I didn't even know that was a thing. And you're like, it's a thing. We can do that. And Great, show me how. So like a lot of coaches don't enjoy making PowerPoint presentations or struggle with coming up with a program for a client or how they're going to build out something. And I can just listen to them and hear what they really love and what they really want to do. And sometimes my ideation just gives them permission to do something they didn't even think was possible.
Oh, that's good. I think as you're listening, friends, ideation gives permission to do something that you didn't think was possible. In the resource that we have available today, Joe, the contributions and needs, how to be a great team member to me. One of the contributions of ideation, it's the first one, able to unleash creativity. And I like to think of it as borrowed ideation. When you can bring that into the room and all of a sudden there's an empowering and equipping and opening created for someone who may not have that capability to see as an ideate does. So I'm not seeing inside of the dots. I'm not seeing where this can go. I happen to be one of those that I enjoy being in the room with an ideate because they start to create possibilities. They start to see in the realm of where we could be, what could happen, and then linking it back to, and here's how we get from here to there. So I'm wondering, as you're moving through the stages as an ideate, and going from concept to fulfillment and such things, in your own experience, what hinders that process? What holds the ideation process back?
Oh, there's nothing more frustrating than hearing, well, that's not possible. Are you kidding me? It's totally possible. Let me give you 6 different ways this is possible. Now, I'm not saying they're all perfect, right? And I think that's really important is we don't think that all of our ideas are gold. We just have to be allowed to have them to explore because one bad idea can truly spark a better idea. And so we need permission to walk through it. Now, to be fair, that's not always something we're allowed to do. We might be on a timeline. We may not be able to do that. So if you can give someone with ideation a heads up and say, come with your 3 best ideas, like find your sounding board, find the person you work really well with, and then come with your 3 best ideas, at least give you the space to do that and still come with possibility. But if you tell me it's not possible, that's just painful.
I've heard it said, and I've asked rooms with multiple strengths represented, either in a team situation, organization, even a family, and I'll ask about ideation, and I'll say, for those of you with this strength, when you hear this is how we've always done it, and not to the extent that this is how we've always done it is necessarily wrong, because there's probably a reason why we've always done it that way, but this is how we've always done it, and there will be no other ideas accepted. Meaning, this is how it is. This is where we're stuck. And every ideate in the room, and for those of you who will see this on video, and Joe's visceral reaction in all ways that she could demonstrate it, just the look of disgust and the wriggling in her seat of just, but that's so limiting. That limits, that puts walls around, and with the speed of innovation in our world right now, it would seem that we need ideates helping us to stay fresh, to stay current, to keep moving, and to challenge status quo, to challenge previously established standards that today don't have the same relevance or just the same effectiveness. So I'm wondering if you could take us down that path a little bit from the perspective of an idea.
Being able to be a little disruptive is definitely a pro, right? And I don't think of myself as ever trying to disrupt just for the sake of disrupting, right? It's okay, this is working, but is it? And what else could we do to maybe make it a little bit better, right? Okay, that's great. It's been working for a long time. But is it still working? Because just because it's worked for now, we saw with the pandemic, right? Like things have shifted dramatically. We have to look at how we hire, how we build businesses, how we do things in a different way. And if you don't have people with ideation who are around you who are willing to say, hey, maybe we could do it this way, right? Then you've got to be flexible to some level of change and disruption. And I think that's probably a key feature we need to keep around at this point, because things are evolving so fast and so furiously that when you get stuck, you may be left behind.
Yeah, no kidding. I want to center in on that word disruption, because in some circles, that word is welcome. That word is important. Someone can wear the title disruptor with absolute certainty that is a part of their role, that is necessary, that is valued, that is given proper accolades and recognition. And then other places, the term disruptor is seen with suspicion, disdain, almost that it's troublemaking. It's causing is big when I hear it just causes more work. You're just making things harder, longer, and messier for each of us. And yet, an ideation would say, if we don't disrupt ideas that are established, then how do we keep building, improving, and growing in a realm where change is necessary? Because what I've always thought about with ideation is that you embrace change. You embrace change as a requirement, as a stated reality that we all are in a process of. No matter whether we're acknowledging it or denying it, change is inevitable and it's happening. And so I've seen some of our best change managers actually engage with ideation because they're very comfortable in that space.
I think it's really important. And I can think back. I used to serve on the board of directors for the National Employee Services Managers Association, and I think I always take it as one of the biggest compliments I ever got, and they meant it in a very kind way, right? Like the disruption was somewhat welcome. Was always like, I just love that you never ask why, Joe. You only ever ask why not.
I want to pause on that for a moment. You don't just ask why, you ask why not. Because in your mind, it's possibilities, it's opportunities.
And again, me asking why not. If you say, well, we did this, 10 years ago and it didn't work and we tried it before, like I can accept that you've done it. I'm going, okay, well, maybe they weren't ready 10 years ago. Could we still use that base of an idea and build on it and do something that is ready for where we are today? For somebody to just say, oh, we can't do that. Okay, why not? I want a reason why this doesn't feel possible to you. And it's fine if there's a valid reason. It's just, I need to know what it is.
So let's talk about the person with ideation. So if someone is listening today and they're a dominant ideate, it's in that set of strengths that are going to be recurring, common for them, and they're thinking to themselves, how do I get the best use of this? How do I communicate this strength? How do I help others know I have it? How do I keep growing it myself? What are tips or tools you give for people with high ideation that want to continue to advance and excel in the strength of ideation?
I think one of the things people high in ideation need to really master is sharing a bit of the process, how you got to an idea. Especially, like I said, we'll hear often more than most other talents, we'll hear, what does that have to do with anything we're talking about right now? And so when ideation can do that, give me a second. I'm going to, take you with me in a second, but just give me a moment to get you there with me. I think that's really important. I think having a space where it's welcome is crucial. I mean, if you go into a very traditional situation, whether that be a company or your group of friends or anything that aren't willing to sort of explore possibilities, it's not going to be a space where we thrive easily. And you're not going to get what we really need out of that. And I think embracing it, because I think there's also a little bit of craziness factor that sometimes could be associated with it. Like, well, that's insane. You can make the most of it. And I don't know that it's been an evolution for me as well, even in my own business and coaching other people, is knowing that that's something that I offered, but I haven't always known how to market it as a value. But over the years and sort of looking at those patterns and seeing how, no, this is actually this is a place where I shine, and I need to build a way for me to do more of it because that's when I'm at my best.
And thinking about the strength of ideation, you have implied that this person's going to be good for fresh concepts. You have implied that this person is going to be your go-to when it's time to take an abstract situation, something really complex, and now let's find a plane of existence here that we can build toward. And so I'm wondering if you can help our listeners today. You work with someone with high ideation. They're on your team, they're in your work group, and we want to pull the best of that strength out of them. What are some ways we can do that?
You just have to ask. It's not real hard to pull it out of us. I mean, if we're ready to go, we're ready to go. We just need permission to go. But I think the other side of the coin is I know a big need for me is I need a thank you. I need recognition for my ideas. And it's funny because what I do is I give other people my ideas and they run with them. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be at my best. But when you give somebody ideas and you don't even get like a, hey, I really want to thank Joe for getting me started down this path, or hey, I'd like to thank Joe for giving me this idea to do this, or whatever it is, right? Like, and I'm very careful myself that if I learn from someone else, I am very, very aware of making sure that people know that that was not my idea or my thought and give credit where credit is due. And I think that comes from my ideation very much is that need of recognition of our ideas as well.
Today, we're talking with Joe Self, founder of Discover Joe Self and author of the Practical Strengths series. Speaking of ideation, Joe, so we talked about creative, artistic, inventive, and authorship is somewhere where someone with ideation can go. Can you tell the listeners about your books and where they might find them?
So the Practical Strengths series was born out of the idea that strengths is beautiful in the boardroom and the corporate space, but man, they don't just show up 9 to 5. They're with us all the time in everything we do. And so Practical Strengths was really born of this desire to start showing people everyday ways that our talents can show up and serve us in different spaces. And so the first book was on parenting. There's actually going to be a 2.0 version coming out soon, which is going to be titled Family and Education. I've got communication styles and career success, and I'm currently working on conflict management and relationships. And there's probably 6 other books in there. And I was like, how are you going to write so? I'm like, I have a lot to say. I don't know what else to tell you. I have a lot to say, and I can't keep it in. I want to share it.
And where can they find those books?
Any Amazon that you visit regularly. At the moment, everything is available on Amazon, both in print and Kindle. And the Kindle is it's $3 in the States, roughly, and should be the equivalent of that just about any other country.
So listeners, you heard it here. Joe Self, author of Practical Strengths series, 3 books right now that you can find on Amazon with at least 6 more coming.
Yeah, 3 more working on them right now this year and probably another 6 behind those. So yeah, there's a few on the way.
So look for releases coming soon. We're talking about the strength of ideation today. And if you are someone looking to expand your strengths knowledge, maybe you've been at this a while independent or you're internal, we have a resource for you today, and it is called How to Be a Good Teammate to Me. And if you are looking for some support in understanding what strengths contribute, what they need, and how to get the best of your team members, go ahead and respond to us today after you watch the show, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, and your email. Our email is available for you to reach out, Brandon@34strong.com, and we will get you that resource. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. For some of you listeners you don't know, this is our take 2 because I was so excited to get going on our first episode that we recorded a brilliant show and I failed to hit record. So Joe, thank you for being such a good sport and coming back. I love to run it back sometimes and get a chance to do this. So Joe, where can people find you? Where do they go to get a hold of you or your stuff?
Yeah, the easiest place to find me is at discoverjoeself.com. Or you can also go to practicalstrengths.org. We're building that out right now to make sure that the books and everything we're building around practical strengths is going to start getting highlighted. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram as Discover Joe Self.
And that is J-O and then self. J-O and then self. For those If those of you that are looking, discover Joe Self. Joe, thank you so much. Listeners, again, if you're interested in getting the free resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, where we uncover the contributions and needs or any other information about our sponsor, 34 Strong, you can find that at 34strong.com. It's been another great week of Coach to Coach, Season 2 of The Strengths Whisperer, and everything you wanted to know and more about the strength of ideation. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.